Canada's smallest province is getting ready for a big decision, choosing who will govern it for the next 4 years. Today is the final day on the campaign trail on Prince Edward Island ahead of Election Day tomorrow. The leaders of the 4 major parties have only hours left to make their pitches to voters.
If we want a better future, we have to make better choices. Islanders deserve a better deal.
A Green government will end the neglect in housing.
We will always put people at the center of decisions and make their lives better.
We need leadership and we need vision.
Over 106,000 Islanders are eligible to have their say in the election. One-third of them have already done just that in the advance polls. PC leader Dennis King is hoping to return for a second term as premier. His party and the NDP are the only ones fielding a full slate of candidates in the 27 ridings up for grabs. The Greens hope they can build on their historic rise last time around to the official role of the opposition, while the Liberals will be trying to bounce back after slipping to third-party status in 2019. Well, for insights on where each party stands heading into the polls tomorrow, we are joined by Teresa Wright and Don Desserud. Teresa is a freelance political journalist and former Canadian Press parliamentary reporter. Don is a P.E.I. political analyst. They join us from Charlottetown. Thank you both for taking the time. We know this is the first provincial general election since the pandemic. What are the issues that are most important to voters this time around? Teresa, let's start with you.
Well, healthcare has by far been the biggest topic discussed by the leaders and by a lot of voters in this campaign. PEI is very much like the rest of the country in that we're struggling a lot to have enough healthcare workers, to retain family doctors, and there's also been struggles to keep rural hospitals in the province open. So that's created a lot of strain in the community, especially we have an older population in this province. So it has definitely dominated in terms of the issues in this campaign.
Okay, Don, Teresa's highlighting healthcare there. What do you think are other hot button issues this election?
Well, I don't totally agree with the healthcare, but there's something else that's been going on with the pandemic, with 2 hurricanes, with other crises that this government has faced. I think a focus now is not just on the big issues, but on government competence, government readiness, government's ability to get their act together and deal with something when it does happen. That has become a sort of a sleeper issue throughout the campaign. It's not that the parties disagree that we have to do something about these issues. They may disagree on how to do it, but there's also an argument about who is best able to do it. That's a tough one for opposition parties, by the way, but that's the argument they're making.
So crisis management, if you will, how you can get things done under pressure. Okay, Teresa, Election Day came earlier than planned this year. Why do you think Premier King chose to hit the polls 6 months before the fixed election date?
Well, it definitely worked in his favor. We saw that the PC party was just far more ready for this election than the other 2 parties or 3 parties. The Liberals and the Green Party and the NDP were nominating right up until the deadline. And in fact, the Liberals and the Green Party didn't end up running a full slate of candidates. So they were struggling to get enough people to run. So that absolutely played to the PC party and Dennis King's hand. I don't think it actually would have made a huge difference in terms of the overall outcome of this election if he had waited the 6 months. So it is a little curious, but I think it just helped him, give him that little bit of an edge and help them be more prepared than the other parties.
Don, we know for decades the Liberal Party has been the Conservatives' main contender in Prince Edward Island. Now the Liberals are battling the Greens for that opposition position. What do you make of that strategy?
Well, that's been the most interesting part of this campaign, I think. It's not that the Liberals haven't seen their fortunes go up and down. Both parties have done that over time. I think it was 2000, there was only 1 Liberal MLA in the House. PCs have been in the same situation. So that kind of swing is not unusual. What's different this time, or in the 2019 election anyway, was that the Green Party was there. So the Liberals see the Green Party as the party that's in their way as they try to come back. So they've made it very clear that they want to go after the Green Party in this campaign. And we see that with Sharon Cameron running against Peter Bevan Baker in his own riding.
Teresa, Premier King came under fire after audio was released of him saying, quote, "You don't gotta drive everything down everybody's throat" when asked about trans issues. How damaging do you think that was for him politically?
I think, there was that recording, and there was a couple of other recordings that have been sort of leaked through social media of Dennis King on the doorstep, sort of saying one thing in private versus others, other statements that he's made in public. And I really do think that it's kind of damaged, sort of the Teflon that he's had over the last couple of years. He's been the premier through COVID, and has very high approval ratings. He went into this election with very high polling numbers. But I have to wonder if Islanders are perhaps going to be viewing him a little bit differently, because I think he's been challenged on a number of these issues. And again, that recording that was leaked about that particular comment, I think it showed another side of Dennis King that we haven't seen before. And so even though I think that the PCs are very much going to win this next election, I think he's lost some of that political capital that he had going into the race.
Don, what do you think?
I think so as well. Now, I don't know it's going to have any impact on the vote tomorrow. I think where it's going to have more impact, by the way, is once the House comes back. This is going to be a issue that an opposition member, maybe an opposition leader, could use. I'm thinking of the way P.E.I is always able to drag up missteps of Justin Trudeau from the past and throw them back at him, regardless of the context of the discussion. If an aggressive opposition leader wants to use this, I think that's where we'll see the damage in the next session.
All right, let's have you both put on your crystal ball hats, if you will, for a moment. What do you think the outcomes are going to be when it comes to the polls tomorrow? Teresa, let's start with you.
Well, I think that the PCs are going to win a majority. They were more prepared, they were more organized, and their get out the vote machine has been very strong in this election. We saw even with the advanced polls, a lot of turnout, and that generally advanced polls tend to work in the favor of incumbent governments. I do think that the Green Party will probably lose some seats. They went into this with 8 seats, which was quite historic for the Green Party in North America. But there was a few Green MLAs who weren't on the ticket again this time around, and so those were open seats. The Conservatives have very much been targeting those seats. And I do think that the biggest interesting race is Peter Bevan Baker, the leader's own seat. I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens there, because again, as Don said, the Liberal leader is running against him in that riding. So it'll be one way or the other. One of these parties is going to be without a leader, or without a leader in the House at the end of this, and it will definitely be devastating to whichever party that happens to.
Okay, Don, your turn. Pull out your crystal ball. What can we expect?
I think everyone is looking at a PC win. Even the opposition parties are. I wish we had some polling data over the course of this campaign. I haven't found any. If it's out there, that makes this very, very difficult to do. I still could think of my old politics professor always telling us, only thing you can never be assured of in an election is a surprise. So there will be some surprises, but I'm thinking, like Teresa, the maybe 5 seats in opposition divided 3-2 one way or the other would be a reasonable outcome this time.
As they say, the only poll that matters is the one on Election Day. So we will, of course, watch very closely what happens. Teresa Wright and Don Desserud, thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for having us.
And we will have special coverage of the PEI election on Monday with host Louise Martin. It all begins at 6 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Atlantic, right here on CBC News Network. You can also stream it on CBC Gem or listen on CBC Radio.